Hi all, welcome to educators.com. I'm Harish, software engineer. In this session, we will learn about the attributes of properties and different ways to access properties of an object and enumerating through properties of an object and finally deleting properties of an object. So by end of this session, you should be able to understand how to add the properties to an object, how to restrict the access of these properties of an object, and enumerating through properties of an object, and finally deleting properties of an object. Coming to attributes of properties, object data properties have attributes. So even properties can also have attributes. Like each data property has not only the name value pair but also have three attributes. Like apart from the value property, it also have three attributes. By default, these all values are set to true. Okay. So coming to configurable attribute, it specifies whether the property can be deleted or changed. So this means if you make it as false, it won't be deleted. So that's the reason. I mean, like it will throw an error. Okay. So this is one of the property which can be used to specify whether the property can be deleted or changed. Okay. Why this property is attribute is useful is, let's say you have some logic within an object where it depends on a property, and you can also delete the as you can delete the properties of an object. If the user tries to delete the property, it may impact the other functions. So to avoid the deleting the property, we will be setting the value as false. And coming to enumerable, it specifies whether the property can be returned in a for-in loop. As I mentioned in previous session that for-in loop is used to iterate through the properties of an object. So when you set it as false, you won't get this property within that loop. Okay. So the enumerable is used to denote whether this property can be referenced within that loop, which is used to iterate through the properties of an object or not. Coming to writable. Okay. In this, it specifies whether the property can be changed or not. Like whether you want to make the property as read-only or not. By default, it is writable. So if you want to make it as only read-only, you can make it as false. Like there might be some constant values which the user should not change at all, which the object depends. So in order to avoid those things, you can define this value as false. Okay. So coming to what are the ways to access properties of an object? We can access the properties of an object in two ways. First is dot notation and the second is bracket notation. So here in this example, you can check I declared an user detail object with two properties called first name and last name. So how to access the first name value? Simply the object name dot property name. So in this way you can access the properties of an object. But the disadvantage is you cannot access the string if the properties of an object are declared using a string or number, then you cannot access with this approach. Whereas in the bracket notation, you can access the properties if they are defined with string or number. Okay, as you can check in the second example, I'm trying to get the property which is defined using string using the bracket notation. Okay, so enumerating all properties of an object. So what are the different ways to iterate the properties of an object? First is for in loop. This loop can be used to iterate through properties of an object. Here in this example, you can check that I declared an object with three properties called A, B, C. So when I use for in loop like where prop in object, it will point to each property for each loop. Like in the first loop it points to A, then in the second loop it points to B, and third loop finally it points to C. So the prop denotes a property name of that object, and when you access the object of prop, it will denote the value of that property. This is how you can use a foreign to iterate through all the properties of an object. So what is this object.keys is being used? This method returns an array with all the own enumerable properties keys of an object O. This means it will return an array containing the name property names of that object, which are owned by the object. That means which are not shared. Okay, which are not enumerable means it will return only the values which are with properties with an attribute which are set to true for enumerable attribute. Okay. Object.getOwn property names. This method returns an array containing all own property names of an object. This means, let's say here in this example, I created an object with a getFoo property which is of enumerable false. That means it is not available when you want to iterate through all properties of an object within a loop or not something. So when I defined a getFoo property, and then also at the outside I defined a foo property also. So when I try to get own property names, so here it returns me the foo and get foo. Whereas when you use the keys over this object, it will return only foo. So that's the main difference of using keys and get own property names. So how to delete the properties of an object? You can delete the properties of an object using the delete keyword. So here in this example you can check I defined my object with two properties called A and B, and then I deleted the A property of this object using delete keyword. So when I use the delete keyword over the property of an object, the property will not be available from the next step itself. So when I try to check whether this A property is there within this object or not, it will return me as false as I deleted the property before. Okay. And if you want to check my object.a also, it will be returning as undefined. Okay. So serialize and deserialize objects. When you want to send a data through an HTTP request, you need to convert it into strings. So how to convert this object into string? Before that, they used to use before ES5, they used to use some library to convert this object into JavaScript. Sorry, JSON string. But whereas from ES5 it has pre-built-in support for this string serialize and deserialization. Like to serialize an object, that means to convert an object into a string, you can use this JSON.stringify method. And to convert from the string to an object, you can use a JSON.parse method. Like here in this example, you can check that I declared an object with two properties, first name and last name. At first I'm doing a stringify of this object, and then in the second time I'm passing the stringified value of this object. So I'm converting first into string, and then I'm reconverting the first string converted string into an object. So the output will be like stringified value will be in the string format, whereas the partial value will be in an object format. So that's the difference of using the serialization and deserialization within objects. Let's flip to bracket server. So here in the previous session we created three objects using the object initializer. So let's try to iterate through the properties of this object. Okay. So in JavaScript you can access the properties of an object using two ways. Like first thing using dot notation, and second is using bracket notation. So let's try to access using the dot notation. Okay, so document dot write. Let's try to print the first name of the user details object. Okay, and check what will be the output. So here you can check that it prints a value as will. So here we are able to access the property, first name property of user details object using dot notation. So now let's check with the user details with number, which has been given the property name with numbers. Okay, so when I try to use the dot notation for the numbers, it is throwing errors. This means that we will not be able to access the properties of an object which have been declared using the numbers or strings. Okay, so now let's try to use the bracket notation. Once again, let's sorry, didn't use this one. So I mean, like, I didn't forgot to use this user details with numbers. So here you can check that it's throwing an error. So now let's check with the brackets notation. So here when I use the bracket notation, we are able to access the value. So this is how it works for the objects. Now let's try to iterate through the properties of an object using the for in loop. Okay. So let's try to iterate through the properties of this user details with string object. So for property in user details with strings, document dot write property with the value. Okay, so let's try to add some subdata. So here you can check it iterated through the properties of first name and last name of user details with string object. Okay, so this is how you can iterate through the properties of an object. Now let's try to check with the enumerable property. Okay, like how this when you use enumerable property, how the properties will not be available within the for in loop one. Okay, so here at the bottom we already created a new car model object using the object create method. So let's try to iterate through the new car model object. Okay, so new car model, and that's it. Okay, but before that let's create the properties for this object, saying enumerable is true for one property, and then another property saying with the value as test, and then enumerable as false. Okay, yeah. Now let's check the output. So here, as you can check that it has printed the true properties. Like one is a model with the property with the value as tsid, and the second is a get model function which has been assigned through the prototype. Okay, but not the property called sample, because we made it as enumerable as false. So when you use this enumerable property with the value as false, those properties will not be available in the in loops, like for in loop. Okay. So this is one use of using this enumerable properties. Now let's check with the object string file, that is the JSON string file methods. So here at the top we created a user details with string object. Now let's try to check how that it gets printed when we stringify. Okay, so document.write JSON dot stringify of this user details with strings object. Let's check the output. So here you can check this is a string notation of the object. So this is how it gets converted when you use a JSON.stringify method. When you try to convert this method itself into the pure object using the JSON.parse method, and let's try to access the first name property. Okay, first name property, it will be available as a normal object. So this is how it works for the JSON stringify and parsing that JSON stringify into object. Okay, now let's try to use a delete an property of an object. Okay, so let's try to delete the user details first name or property within the user details with string object. Okay, first name, and now let's try to print that whether that object property has been available within this object or not. So it says as false because we have deleted the property, okay, of that object. So this property will not be available within that object once you use a delete keyword over the property. So this is how you can delete the properties of an object. Okay. That's all from this session. Thank you.